As you probably know, wrestling is a great illusion. Just like in a magic show, they make us believe in a certain reality. But in fact, there are dozens of secret techniques to manipulate viewers and make sure that everything goes according to plan. It's a pleasure to meet you on the Wrestling Paradise to present you little tricks that WWE uses that will change your perception of this incredible discipline forever. Are you ready to be shocked when you learn about the mind-blowing scheme that was used to preserve the superstars during a Royal Rumble? Do you want to know more about the way they tamper with the sound in the arenas? Do you want to discover how a wrestler can be buried alive and still survive? And are you curious to learn how Jeff Hardy was able to get pyro on him safely? You have come to the right place, because in our video we will discover together a multitude of secrets that the Federation uses, and they may surprise you. You are on the Wrestling Paradise, WWE's greatest tricks. Here we go. We start with a scene that many fans remember. It's the beginning of 2009, at a time when Jeff Hardy's amazing character was at the peak of his popularity. For a few weeks now, he was WWE Champion for the first time in his career. But one evening in January, things will take a darker turn for him. In the middle of his entrance to join Edge in the ring, Jeff suddenly gets several fireworks on him. He seemed to be the victim of a very real pyrotechnic incident that could have burned him completely. Of course, as realistic as it may have seemed, it was planned. In reality, a scheme had been imagined so as not to hurt Hardy. You should know that the white sparks that go on him are not harmful to the skin. By paying attention, we see that the flame that appears is actually behind the wrestler, even if the position of the camera makes us believe that it was on him. The least we can say is that the staging was successful because many of the fans on site were terrified. Imagine that all this was supposed to lead to the return of the wrestler Christian to the company. But in the end, we will learn that the big culprit of this assault on Jeff and other things was none other than Matt, his brother. Now let's talk about a trick to know about wrestlers' moves. As you may have noticed, it sometimes happens that a superstar stops certain moves in the ring, that he changes his finisher during his career, or that his way of wrestling evolves. This is, for example, the case of Seth Rollins. In his early days, we saw him doing the curb stomp. It was devastating. With his leg, he crushed his opponent's head on the mat. But suddenly, overnight, he had stopped doing it in 2015, which will last several years before he ends up using it again. The reason why an important move of a wrestler had suddenly disappeared in this case was related to Vince McMahon, the company's boss during those years. From the moment Rollins became champion in 2015, he obviously had a much bigger exposure. He went to talk shows on television, he appeared more in the media. There was a very well-known show, The Today Show, which did a little video where we saw Seth doing the curb stomp. That's when Vince McMahon became worried. Children could start imitating the champion's finisher while it is dangerous. We can actually imagine that kids crushing their friends' heads on the ground by leaning on their necks. That's not good at all. So the move was banned, even if it frustrated Rollins. Finally, in 2018, the boss will allow him to do it again. One object that we see a lot when we watch a WWE show is microphones. There are, of course, the ones that wrestlers have in their hand if they have to speak in the ring. But there is also the one that the interviewers hold when there are backstage scenes where they ask questions to the superstars. Seeing this, we obviously think of other sports where athletes are interviewed in the same way after a match or a competition. However, in the WWE, it's a little different. There is a little trick behind this detail. The microphones that the interviewers hold in these scenes are actually fake and purely used to make it look good on the screen. If we think about it a little, it's only logical. If there are several wrestlers, we won't be able to hear them all well with just this microphone, unless the interviewer moves around non-stop. In fact, it is with poles that the sound is recorded in these scenes, just like in cinema. It's interesting to think about why interviewers continue to have these microphones in their hand when there is already a purchased who takes care of the sound. Maybe the illusion that it creates gives a credible and sports look to the show and would help to make us believe in everything that is being told. It's 2020 at WrestleMania 36. That year, with the health context, the most important WWE show takes place exceptionally at its performance center with no fans. That won't stop Kevin Owens from wanting to make an impact with a memorable moment in his match against Seth Rollins. He was determined to give everything and make this match as unforgettable as possible.
Oh my God!
Owens gives us a jump from the highest spot where he could go in this arena to then land on his opponent on the commentator's table. Even if we have already seen much more dangerous stunts, it was still impressive and risky, especially with his size. We can then wonder if there was a trick behind the execution of this jump so that he would not get injured. Thanks to a documentary produced by the company, we were able to find out more. First of all, imagine that the Canadian would have jumped off a spot of the big boat on the stage if the show had taken place at Raymond James Stadium in Tampa. This is where it was originally supposed to happen before everything was turned upside down. It was then a question of replacing this spot with another one at the Performance Center. Kevin has been scouting in several areas, sometimes unsuccessfully. Finally, they will place a ladder for him to go precisely to the spot to jump. Thanks to this trick, it was possible to create this WrestleMania 36 landmark moment. We have all seen images of the most famous Hell in a Cell matches, with the amazing falls of Mick Foley in 1998, for example. In this stipulation, wrestlers usually fight inside the cage, where they are locked up. They have the right to use all kinds of weapons, which traditionally leads to much more violent clashes than usual. What you need to know is that superstars do not systematically go to the top of the cage at all. As you can imagine, this is a rare moment that doesn't happen often. We can then ask ourselves how we can know if the wrestlers will climb on the roof of the structure at some point, or just how it is possible to climb this fence. In fact, there is a little trick. If you have ever watched wrestling, you may have noticed that athletes often wear big boots. It is therefore impossible for them to support themselves with their feet on the small holes that there are everywhere on the fence. So here and there are bigger holes that have been cut by some technicians. The wrestler will then spot them and use them to climb the structure. The next time you watch this kind of match, you can look at the fence and see if there are these bigger holes or not. If there is, you got a good chance to see the wrestlers on the top of the cage within a few minutes. In wrestling, there are multiple stipulations for matches. Some are more or less violent, others more or less creative. One of the most exciting stipulations is the buried alive match. The concept is completely crazy. To win, the wrestler must bury his opponent alive. Legends like The Undertaker, Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Rock, Kane, and even former boss Vince McMahon already were in such confrontations, and they are always memorable. Nevertheless, we can wonder how the Federation manages to do it without endangering its wrestlers by burying them alive for real. The trick behind buried alive matches is a small tunnel that is hidden inside. It enables the superstar to go directly to the backstage zone without anyone noticing. By the time the earth is poured over the grave, the wrestler has actually left the scene for quite a while. For the viewers, the illusion is complete. Commentator Jim Ross is the one who revealed this trick, although he confessed he didn't dare to check everything himself, fearing that his colleagues would play a joke on him and lock him in it. It should be noted that The Undertaker is the real specialist in this stipulation since he participated in the 5 buried alive matches there have been in WWE history. We continue with a trick that we are not necessarily aware of when we watch wrestling matches. You should know that in reality, behind each match, especially in the most important events, there can be power games between different actors. It's not just about one person writing a script every week, as it's often the case with TV shows. Concretely, there are some more or less influential people who will want to set up a match to make that wrestler win, to push for their own vision. This is, for example, what happened in 2024 for WrestleMania 40. For months it seemed set in stone that Roman Reigns vs Cody Rhodes 2 would be the main event of the show. But in January, The Rock, the famous actor, joined the board of directors of the company that controls the WWE. He then pushed to instead set up a match between him and Roman Reigns at the Showcase of the Immortals, which would bring more money and media exposure according to him. So the plans changed along the way, but then again, something happened that only exists in wrestling. Some of the fans were angry and made themselves heard a lot on Twitter with the hashtag #WeWantCody. In the end, under the pressure of these fans who could ruin WrestleMania by booing, the Federation returned to the original project with an important role for The Rock, despite everything. It's a bit like if fans of a TV show are disappointed that their favorite character is no longer highlighted enough and revolt against the writers, to the point of even sending death threats to their daughter. But that really happened in the case of The Rock. It shows you that wrestling is also an internal creative battle between several people, which makes this universe different from all the others. Cages in the WWE have a long history. There is not only the Hell in a Cell, there is also the steel cage match where wrestlers can escape. In this stipulation, it happens regularly that superstars are violently thrown on the fence. It has even happened several times that part of the cage breaks, which always creates spectacular scenes. We remember, for example, a sequence in 2018 during which Roman Reigns did a violent spear on Brock Lesnar that destroyed the cage. To make these kind of stunts work, there is a little trick the company uses. Like other techniques, we don't notice it as viewers unless you are an expert. In reality, when a moment is planned where a piece of cage must come off with a move, the American company uses very thin fasteners between the piece and the rest of the cage. By doing this part of the cage barely holds together with the rest, and it is enough to brutally jump on it for it to collapse. These are typically the kind of little secrets that create spectacular moments, like so many other hidden tricks. The Royal Rumble is generally wrestling fans' favorite show. It takes place only once a year and determines who will participate in the WrestleMania main event. The concept is great. We start with 2 wrestlers, and then every 90 seconds, a new participant arrives ready to fight. Everything must come together well so that the match doesn't become chaotic, since there are usually 30 wrestlers taking part in it. To improve fluidity and make life easier for superstars, WWE has already used an unusual trick. You should know that the Royal Rumble has already taken place in large arenas. This meant that there was a hell of a distance between the ring and the entrance ramp through which the wrestlers arrive. The goal is for them to get to the ring quickly so that there is no delay in the progress of the Rumble. So in 2017, the company simply used carts. To avoid the wrestlers from running a long distance, this small vehicle would pick them up when they were no longer filmed and drive them at full speed to the ring without the viewers noticing. It's a quite fun technique, and the fans on site could of course see all the manipulation. But at least the participants didn't arrive out of breath, which is a good thing. Let's end with a very amazing trick that we are far from imagining when we watch a show. As you have probably already noticed, fireworks and pyro have an important place in it in general. They are full-fledged elements of the show and bring a real added value to some entrances. However, we will be shocked to learn that the sound we hear when there are these pyros is actually fake. It's not the real sound they produce, which is less loud, but an effect the Federation adds to make the whole thing much more epic. In reality, a large box is hidden behind the stage which will make big detonation noises, which are sometimes deafening for the spectators on site. Once again, it is a technique that the fans in the arena will realize but that the viewers won't notice. It shows us that for the WWE, the most important thing is to create an illusion for the millions of people who will watch the shows on screens, regardless of what the fans who are there think. And that was it for these WWE tricks. Knowing all these details, we realize how sports entertainment is full of methods to impress us as spectators. We could also see how security and image are central concerns for the company, which is understandable. Let's not forget that we are talking about an empire that is worth billions of dollars and a topic that is one of the most followed ones on YouTube, for example. Often as simple fans, we are far from imagining all the secrets of this fascinating world. This makes me offer you a debate. Is it better in your eyes to know as little as possible about the secrets and the hidden side of wrestling in order to appreciate it in a more innocent way? We invite you to come and give your opinion. It will be interesting to talk about it together in the comments and to share our points of view. We can say that pro wrestling is a crazy universe. I hope you had a good time watching this video, and I invite you to stay on the paradise of wrestling to look at some other ones. See you right away.
And that's the bottom line, 'cause Stone Cold said so. What?